With his rising stock, Trinidad Chambliss can lock up first-round status with a statement game against the Miami Hurricanes tonight.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with the LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. Guys, tonight we have a big-time college football matchup in the semifinals, Miami versus Ole Miss. We're going to talk about the offensive prospects to watch, Trinidad Chambliss, Carson Beck, defensive prospects to watch, Keonte Scott, Rueben Bane, and then those key matchups that can dictate who wins and loses this game. But before we get to that, today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Offensive prospects to watch, Keith. When you turn this game on tonight, on the offensive side of the ball, who are you looking to see in terms of NFL draft prospects?
Yeah, I mean, you said it, right? And there's been a lot of conversation about this young man, right? And his return potentially to Ole Miss and waivers and everything. And that's Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss. If you paid attention to the Twitter sphere last week, right? Everybody was like, why isn't this guy QB1, right? Like, I think a lot of people first time watching was like, this is the best quarterback in the country. I look at it, DP, and I say with Trinidad, it's can you have a repeat performance, right? And going against guys like Rueben Bane and Akeem Messador and Wesley Vasante, can you have a repeat performance of just being a playmaker? And I think as hard as he's fighting for the waiver, if you start hearing first round conversations, I mean, it's very difficult to pass that up, right? And watching Trinidad, I think the game against Georgia, you tell me, it may have been his best performance as a collegiate player.
Sure.
Because up until that, I think he played decent ball, and for all the listeners, that's why he wasn't QB1, right? It wasn't great. It was solid, right? It was probably a solid B- across the board. But I think the Georgia game, he had an A+ game. So I'm definitely looking at Trinidad Chambliss because you inserting another name into this quarterback conversation, and can he catch steam and catch fire? And I'll repeat this throughout the rest of the draft process. Jackson Dart was not a first round pick at the end of the season.
No, you're right. It wasn't until the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl is
Senior Bowl.
That's what kind of boosted him up, and we always say we don't know what the Giants coaching staff and brass saw at the Senior Bowl that said, hey, he's a first round pick now, because the Senior Bowl didn't highlight any of the quarterbacks. Truthfully, none of them got a really big chance to do anything on that team. So I don't know what they saw, but yeah, Jackson Dart wasn't the first rounder, and Trinidad Chambliss, I think for him, I'm on the same path as you, Keith. Like, listen, strike while the iron is hot, right? Now, if you're talking to the NFL advisory board and you're hearing third, fourth round, then okay, I can see you potentially trying to go back.
Yep.
But then you run the risk of you going back into a class that people are already calling, for the people watching on YouTube, loaded. We don't know what that class is actually going to materialize into. Same thing, we thought this class was supposed to be loaded and guys didn't play well, right? Either way, I think he won't make a bad decision, but it needs to be a very calculated decision on his behalf, because right now people are buzzing about him based off of how he did against Georgia. I'll definitely be watching him, because I think this is a defense. We know one thing about this defense: they're tough, they're physical, and they're athletic. One thing I did this report earlier in the season, and I gave him like a day 2 grade initially anyway. And for me, it was more so I want to see him anticipate throwing opportunities better, play faster mentally. This is not the defense to play behind on. Like, he's got a tendency to throw passes behind some receivers, especially in the middle of the field, things like that. You got to get the ball on time. Number one, because of the pass rush. Number two, that secondary will take the ball away. From Jakobe Thomas to, which we'll talk about those guys in a minute, Keonte Scott, those guys, you can't give them opportunities to get their hands on the football. They will take it away from you. So I want to see how he plays in this game, how he uses his legs, things of that nature, how balanced they are offensively. But then I go to Carson Beck, and it's just like, Carson Beck is just sitting there like, man, I'm just managing the game. My team's still winning in the CFP, and don't nobody give a crap about me. Nobody cares about good old Carson Beck. And I think for Carson, just continue to showcase what you're doing, right? Be it that game manager, and we know that there's a lot of NFL coaches that love game managers, Keith. Like they don't want Kyle Shanahan will never have a Lamar Jackson, a Pat Mahomes, a Josh Allen. He will never have that archetype of quarterback. He doesn't want that archetype of quarterback. He doesn't want that guy that could take over the game and like, hey, we ran, some sprint out and I wanted you to throw the flats. Those guys are throwing that corner route 40 yards down the field or 20 yards down the field for the big play. He wants those guys who are going to run the offense the way he wants to design, the way he designs it, right? And Carson Beck is going to be that type of guy. So I'm looking at Carson Beck and say, hey, just go out there. Don't make mistakes. This is not a great defense either. Like this isn't, this ain't A&M. This isn't Ohio State. I want to see Carson Beck. I want to see him let it rip a little bit more in this game, Keith. I want to see Carson Beck and Mario Cristobal. Run Mark Fletcher, but let's see the offense open up passing wise. This isn't the caliber of defenses you played in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs.
No, it's not, DP. And with the Carson Beck conversation, I think a easy comp to have for this, right? And we're talking about in context of quarterbacks being drafted, would be Tyler Shough, right? I looked up Tyler Shough's stats, and I believe Tyler Shough last year went 24-6, meaning 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I think it was somewhere in that general area, right, of statistics, meaning that it wasn't 35-5, right? It wasn't 40 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and this young man still went in the second round. I think for Carson Beck, he probably has enough bad plays to probably play himself out of the first round, right? And I'm not talking about in this game, I'm talking about just throughout his career, right? There's enough low lights, right, to where it's like, all right, teams will probably stay away from drafting in the first round. But when you talk about a second, third round quarterback, DP, I'm looking at Carson Beck this year, right? 27 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Last year, which was, if I'm not mistaken, that was the down year, right?
It was a down year.
It's down year. And DP, if you look at it, was 28 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. So it wasn't completely horrible. And then the year that he had coming in, the 2023 season, which is his first year as a starter, right, to where he had a lot of buzz as far as being a late first, second round pick. It was 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, right? So, it's adding context to it. And I think that they're going to be offensive coordinators, quarterback coaches that are going to say, wait, we've seen enough throws from this guy, right? He's been a 3-year starter. He's shown that he can make every throw on the football field, right? Can I work with that, especially if I can get a second, third round value on this young man? So I think Carson Beck still has a lot to play for. And I think there's been such high variance to where some games you're looking at Carson Beck and you're like, that looks pretty doggone good, right? And then some games, obviously, you feel the opposite way. But I can see why he would be an offensive guy to watch because he will have an impact in the quarterback class.
No, 100%. And I mean, I think, when I look at Beck, his arm is good. It's not great. What we saw from early Daniel Jones, right? Eventually, I felt like the defense started catching up with Daniel Jones in the Colts offense. Once you start taking away Jonathan Taylor, now Daniel Jones went from MVP candidate to, are you New York Giants Daniel Jones again? Like he was teetering that line. But what we saw from him early in the season was he managed the game. He made quick reads. He got the ball to Josh Downs and Tyler Warren. He was effective just getting the ball out of his hands and making the right decisions. Well, Carson Beck does the same exact thing. So I think the teams in that third round range more than likely. I think for him to move his stock up, he'll have to play really well in this game, but also maybe go to a Senior Bowl and stuff before we get to the combine where it's all interviews and you're not going to run, you're not going to jump and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like you want to get one more, depending on how this game goes, no matter if you play well and you lose or you play well and you win, I still want to get as many bites at the apple for him and everything. And then I go to wide receiver CJ Daniels. I expect Ole Miss to want to try and limit Malachi Toney. All right. Carson Beck had tunnel vision for him pretty much all season. You got to be able to look past him and say, okay, teams are going to try and take you away. In the NFL, that's what we're going to do to your number one wide receiver. Can you get the other guys involved and do it effectively without being late and without putting the ball in harm's way? He's got to get the other receivers involved tonight versus Ole Miss's offense.
Yeah, I agree with that. And he's a sneaky guy, right? When you talk about the top 100 conversation, and that's why we consistently say like this wide receiver class is so deep because he's a talented guy when you cut the film on. And for our listeners is not ultra familiar with him, this is a young man that was at Liberty and he put up really good numbers at Liberty, then transferred to LSU. LSU was a down year last year for him. Then he transferred to Miami and he picked up the production once again.
Yep.
So a young man that has a vast resume, but also when you cut the film on this guy can make some plays. And I wonder if there's going to be some teams that can say, hey, he could potentially be our wide receiver 2, for sure, our wide receiver 3, and can he climb into that top 100 of this class? But DP, let's do this, man. We talked offensive side of the football. Let's switch to the defensive side of the football and talk about some of these defensive prospects to watch coming up next.
Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track down every transaction or even hunt down these hidden fees? Well, that's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I love how it tracks all my subscriptions and let me cancel them right in the app with just a few taps. No more hunting down customer service numbers to call. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them right inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets you like most. Just open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. Every play feels bigger, and every boost makes your bets feel that way as well. You make your picks and then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Defensive prospects to watch when Miami faces Ole Miss. And Keith, of course, Rueben Bane Jr., Makeem Messidor are the top guys. But I go to Keonte Scott, the nickel corner for Miami, and battled some injuries early in the season, returned back healthy, and he's been a big-time boost to this secondary, right? Making plays against Texas A&M in coverage, blitzing, playing, as a plus one in the run game, got the pick 6 on Julian saying, just the instincts and the high football IQ in terms of, you could tell, Keith, it, like you watch guys and you could, especially defensive players, and especially in secondary, you could tell who's been watching film because they know, okay, this split, this alignment, this down and distance, this is where you like to go. On 3rd and 5, you like to run this. A 3rd and 7, these are the concepts to look out for. This is where your quarterback is comfortable. And he knew what was coming, right? Read the screen. I think it was like a bubble screen, a wide receiver screen against Ohio State, jumped it, pick 6, right? So I think for me, looking at this game, for Trinidad, not being late on throws, right? Like this offense will throw some lateral stuff too, some screens, some bubble screens, things like that. Those easy kind of free throw completions. Those hey, you see the ball go in the bucket, you see the ball go into the receiver's hands, receivers making plays, it boosts your confidence, it gets you into a rhythm. Well, it's not gonna get you into a rhythm if you're late and then Keonte Scott picks you off. You know what I mean? Or you get your receivers blown up. This is a game for Keonte Scott to really, again, against a talented wide receiver core who's been very productive this year. Dejon Stribling, I think Harrison Wallace III, all those guys, the tight end as well. Being able to play lockdown coverage, but also helping in the run game is going to be, to me, paramount for Miami's defense. Because, again, not just that, but I want to see if college football is caught up to the NFL. In the NFL, these dual threat quarterbacks, that one of the keys and one of the answers I've seen that limit them is blitzing, that cat blitz, that nickel blitz, blitzing the nickel off the edge, showing man, blitzing them and getting and basically shutting that outside door. Because you know those athletic quarterbacks spin out, get outside the tackle and create plays. But when you spin out and you got a nickel corner in your face, now you got to make another guy miss. Your eyes are not on the receivers down the field, and that's allowing everybody else to ride to the ball. Do we get some heavy nickel blitzes on some third down situations from Keonte Scott to get after Trinidad Chambliss and make and speed up his process?
Yeah, no, and that's very possible, right? He definitely a key player. I mean, he made a key plays in the Ohio State game, right? When they played Ohio State, game-changing plays. I'm gonna go with this, man. I do want to highlight. I know you mentioned Rueben Bane and Akeem Messidor, so I'm gonna do a defensive guy from each team. I'm gonna go Akeem Messidor, and I just realized that him and Rueben Bane have very similar measurables. They both sit about 6'3", 280 pounds. So looking at Akeem,
Yeah.
I think he has the opportunity to consistently rise up draft boards, right? Like there's some people you see with second, third round grades on him, and some people that say this young man can go in the first. I think if there is a defensive prospect to elevate his draft stock, I'm gonna set Rueben Bane to the side because I think that he's probably put himself in the first round conversation, right? Like I think even the doubters, which I was a guy that, had question marks. I wouldn't say I was a doubter, but I had question marks, right? About this and about that,
But that was at the beginning of the season, though, Keith.
Yeah.
That was preseason.
Right.
People were doubting him after he had a good season, and now they still kind of, the arm length stuff. They can't let it go. It's like, what are we doing? Like the film is the film. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
it's the film. The film is the film. It's the best way to say it. But looking at Akeem, I think he can he supplant himself into the first round and be like, look, like we're not moving off of this, right? Like it's over with. He's a first round draft pick. He's elevated himself and putting himself in that category. So that's on Miami side. Ole Miss's side, I'm looking at big defensive tackle Zxavian Harris. This big monster, I think he's listed at 6'7", 320 pounds in the middle of this defense. And I know against Georgia, there's a couple times he was kind of down on the ground, injured a little bit. I don't know if it was like a lingering injury, a hampering injury. I don't know if he's 100%, right? But when you look at this, and I'm probably getting into the next segment a little bit when we're talking about key matchups, but you're looking at him versus the Miami run game, right? You're talking about a big Mark Fletcher, 230 pounds coming at you. He's going to be a very important part of this defense and what they need to do to be able to stop Miami's offense. Just a big old nose tackle sitting in the middle, potentially two gapping or getting upfield, depending on what Ole Miss decides to do with him. So I'm looking at Zxavian Harris also. Look out for him, 6'7", 320 pounds.
Yeah, you got that big, that strong, that physical on the defensive line. Eat up some blocks, right? Eat up some blocks. Let your linebackers be free flowing to the football. Let them find the ball. Let them run the alley. Let's clog some of these run lanes. Because one thing we've seen from Mark Fletcher, right? I think coming in that Texas A&M game, I came on here and said, listen, he was hurt. They said he's fresh, he's healthy, he's ready to go. And boy, was he. 170 yards later, he absolutely showed, I haven't played ball in a couple of weeks. My legs are ready to grow. You know what I mean? And then against Ohio State was like 19 carries for like 92 yards or something like that. And that run where he ran straight through Sonny Styles, and it was just like, oh, yeah, like this. All right, you guys are up for the physicality of this game, knowing how physical Ohio State's linebackers and defensive line are. Zxavian Harris is going to have to keep those guys. So you got to keep him. They want to get him downhill. I think it's a situation where you want to make him press downhill and have to jump cut and play outside of his strengths. He's not a super elusive guy and, lateral agility and all. Like, that's not really Mark Fletcher's game. He's a downhill, just physical back with burst, acceleration, and speed, and he's a finisher. You want to make him go east and west rather than him getting north and south, because if he gets north and south, your linebackers at one of them is 230, linebacker Jones, and then I'm looking at the other. Both of them are TJ Dodery is 230, and then you got Andrew Jones, who's also 230. Sometimes they play Terrene Perkins at linebacker. He's 220. I don't think you want Mark Fletcher firing downhill, clean in the alley with those lightweight guys waiting on him at the second level. If you can run through a Sonny Styles at 245, who's built like an NFL linebacker and plays like it, I don't know if you want that. You want these guys to be able to close those run lanes, and I think Zxavian Harris is going to be a big part of that. If he can eat up some blocks, force the center guard tandem, the double team, and they can outnumber that offensive line, I think you can have some success in limiting Mark Fletcher. And then that gets into the situation of Carson Beck. Can you beat us for 4 quarters? Can you be the X factor where, hey, you talking about going into the 4th quarter, Mark Fletcher got 10 carries for 45 yards and he's not super effective. All right, Carson, now it's on your arm in a game where maybe Trinidad Chambliss is having himself a game. But and I throw out one other name on Miami, Jakobe Thomas. I've been talking about him all playoffs. This is a safety that I think you're probably going to hear his name probably 4th round. Depends on how he tests at the combine. But one thing about it, this dude knows how to be around the football. He's a guy that reads the eyes of quarterbacks. That could be dangerous. You get into the league, you play some vets, you know what I mean? You go up there against Matthew Stafford and he no-looks you know what I mean, and throws to where you are, where you're not at. But overall, like, he reads the eyes of quarterbacks. His college quarterbacks don't do a lot of eye manipulation stuff anyway. But he knows how to get his hands on the football. He can take the ball away. And I believe he already has an interception or maybe 2 in this playoff already between the 2 games that Miami has played. So Jakobe Thomas, he plays kind of that mixture of free and strong. He'll walk down into the box and everything, play some low hole for him as well. Definitely a guy that, especially with Trinidad, when they want to get the ball, they like to run that little not shallow, but that kind of intermediate over route to the tight end. Yeah, Jakobe Thomas is probably the guy that you need to keep your eyes on just in case they rotate out of that too high into cover 1 or to cover 3, and he's in that robber technique.
Yep, I agree with that. DP, let's do this, man. We did offensive prospects. We did defensive prospects, and now it's time for our favorite segment, right? Key matchups, right? Which 2026 NFL draft prospects will determine the outcome of this game based on their matchup? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Ever wish to become a pro quarterback, getting drafted 1st overall? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step right into the cleats of a number 1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness, to help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. You think you're accurate? You think you make good decisions and you can lead a team to a championship and to winning football? Well, prove it with Ultimate QB Football Legend. Ultimate QB is totally free, has no ads, and works 100% offline. Perfect for when you want to sneak in a quick game or 2 on the go. Just head to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special for you guys. Use the promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store to get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB Football Legend, QB1, it's your legacy. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. Key matchups to watch: Ole Miss versus Miami. Keith, what is a key matchup? You know, prospect to prospect, scheme, whatever. Get into your bag and tell people what's something that they need to be watching tonight in this game that could determine the winner.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go with the momentum, right? And that's been Mark Fletcher versus whatever front 7 he's been going against, right? And we talked about it, him being able to run through Texas A&M, and then him being able to go against Ohio State. I think if you look at Ole Miss, and you hit on it, and that was my biggest concern, is that the second level of this defense, right? I don't know if they have any 230, 240-pound thumping linebackers, right? All of these guys look athletic, fluid movers, but listen, Mark Fletcher,
big safeties.
Yeah, Mark Fletcher don't need you to move, right? Like you better lock in, you better tape your ankles, because this 220, 230-pound running back is coming at you. And I look at it from the perspective of, will Miami be able to control the clock and control the game that way, right? When you're talking about determining the outcome, meaning that, okay, cool, we give Mark Fletcher the ball 20 times, you know, the 3rd and 3s, converting them on first down, the 3rd and 4s, converting them on first down, taking the ball out of Carson Beck's hand and relying on a run game. And then once you get that, DP, what they always talk about, play action, right? And that's going to open that part up. That's the CJ Daniels with the deep overs. That's the freshman wide receiver, Tony, right? With the vertical shots, things like that. So Mark Fletcher versus this Ole Miss front 7, and we mentioned Zxavian Harris already, Suntarine Perkins. I don't think he's coming out in the draft, but these guys are going to have to make plays, and because they're going to have to tackle Mark Fletcher. I think it's going to be a big part of this game is Miami's run game.
No, 100%. I think, we just talked, kind of talked about it. I talked about it more in depth, and now you broke it down as well. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, this is a situation where Miami wants to be balanced. They want to set the tone, and they've done a great job of that in both playoff games. Coming out early, punching you in the mouth and saying, all right, you weren't expecting that. What's your counter? You know what I mean? Like, because one thing with Mario Cristobal, and I love how they're calling the game. If when they land that first big punch, they look at your knees, right? Like a boxer. Like, oh, your knees wobbly. Okay. You don't have as much base down there. All right, we're going to keep punching then. We're going to keep punching, and eventually we're going to get the knockout blow, and we're going to win this game. And that's what you got to stop if you are an Ole Miss defense. I think, and that's where the chess match, because then what happens if Carson Beck sees it, you know what I mean, sees them try to trigger, they're starting to trigger downhill just relentlessly, right? In terms of Ole Miss. Now you say, you know what? We got the opportunity to play action or RPO this and throw the ball over your head. And that's what you want to see. Can they make those type of decisions on the fly and live in the game, Keith? I go to an Ole Miss offensive player, Dejon Stribling, the 6'2", 210-pound wide receiver. Guys, over his last 4 games, 343 yards receiving, and I believe 3 or 4 touchdowns. He's come off 122 yards and one of the biggest catches in their upset over Georgia last weekend. And this is a guy, again, 6'2", 210, athletic, big body, strong frame. But what I liked, watching him, against press, and not only just against press, but Keith, remember one of our favorite qualities of Quentin Johnson when he was coming out? TCU would run those hitch routes and those curl routes and those comeback routes. But he had such great spatial awareness to know about the way he broke off his route, where that DB was in relation to him. Was he outside on the outside hip or was he on the inside hip? And he would spin immediately off of that, knowing where the DB was and get a feel. Dejon Stribling does the exact same thing. The big, long, I think, touchdown catch and run versus Georgia in the first matchup early in that game. I think it was first quarter. That's how he did it. He's done it so many times this year, especially on this 4-game streak that he's been on in terms of how well he's played. So I want to see how he handles this Miami Hurricanes secondary. They got size, they have athleticism, they got some young guys, right? Do we get a venture? Because they also will push him down into the slot. Do we get that matchup with Keonte Scott?
That's what I was looking for. Yep. To see how much they push him in the slot. In him and Keonte Scott going after it.
That's slot fade, right? Yep. Because that was I think that was the play they got against Georgia late to get him in field goal range. Was a slot fade. Will we see that one-on-one matchup in the slot in pivotal moments and try to take the deep ball? And you're looking at, okay, you versus Keonte Scott, who's going to come out and edge the other one? Who's going to beat the other one in this matchup? And that could determine, especially late in the game, that can determine who ends up winning this matchup.
No, I agree. And I was going to go in that exact area, right? Like just looking at these defensive backs, and we talked about the Miami defensive backs versus Ole Miss passing attack. And it's because I think that Trinidad, I think that Trinidad is going to do some of the scramble, extend plays type of situations. And also, I believe that he's going to give his wide receiver shots, right? He's going to be like, okay, cool. Dejon Stribling, here you go take a shot against the Miami defensive backs, right? I think he's going to give his wide receivers shots at the end of the day to make some plays.
Yeah, 100%, Keith. And I want to throw out one more, and that is the quarterback for Dejon Stribling, his quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss, against both Akeem Messidor and Rueben Bane, right?
Yeah,
we talked about that going. Yep. We talked about that in regard to, remember the matchup with Marcel Reed. Like, hey, how are you guys going to be able to be disciplined as rushers and keep him in the pocket to then also have to sack him because he's so elusive and explosive as a runner? It's very similar. He's not as elusive as Marcel Reed, but he can get out of the pocket, get free, and with that low center of gravity, he can kind of fight through the initial contact. Long as you don't get the grip, get a full hold on him. You got to be able to rush this kid and force him to stay in the pocket, force him to throw from money pockets.
Yeah, no, and I'll say that. And from Trinidad's perspective, if I'm Ole Miss's coach, right, I'm saying don't try to outrun these guys every play, right? Like you're going to be gassed, you're going to be tired. If you're our quarterback and you're consistently in a foot race with Rueben Bane and Akeem Messidor every time we drop back, we're probably going to be in trouble, right? So I think from work up the pocket, right? Work up the pocket, and then 2, take the opportunities when they're present. But if you're feeling that pressure and it's now when you're hit and it's only the middle of the second quarter, we can expect a long night, right? Because you can't put yourself in position to think that I'm gonna outrun 2'6", 280-pound athletic defensive ends, and it's not like they play on opposing sides. I mean, they're not like they play on the same side. They play on opposing sides, meaning that you got one coming from your left, one coming from your right, right? So the whole, run left, spin back right, well, you're going to spin right back into somebody, right?
Right back into somebody.
Yeah, like try to minimize that element of it. Because I agree, like just the pocket maneuvering of Trinidad Chambliss versus the Rueben Bane and the Akeem Mesidor pass rush is going to be very important in this matchup.
No, 100%. I think, and then to your point, they play on opposite sides, and then what they'll do is they'll put them on the same side, and then they'll rush them. I think Akeem will play D, kind of that 4-eye. They'll wide 9, Rueben Bane, and then you get a twist or a stump between the two. And now you got, one attacking the outside shoulder of your tackle, the other one looping back inside in your face as a passer. And I think Ole Miss has him listed at 6'1". Believe that's generous. I think he's more closer to 6 foot. So you got big 6'3" Rueben Bane with his hands up, like a bear in the wilderness running down in your face. And then you try to spin out of that and like, well, Akeem Mesidor is right here. It's a party in the backfield. You don't want that. I think getting the ball out quickly, being deliberate with the passing offense, you got to take to me, an NFL approach. Anytime you watch the NFL, you see guys with what do you see teams try to do against the Browns to neutralize Myles Garrett? Get the ball out as fast as possible. Quick game, quick game, quick game. I think you got to kind of do that to throw that pass rush off their tempo and off their game.
Yep, I agree with DP. That wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we're breaking down Indiana versus Oregon, part 2. We're going to talk about why Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore, what does this game mean for them, as well as Mateo Uyunglele, D'Angelo Pons, all that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.